Okay, so I'm going to be presenting on foot binding in China. So, the origins of foot binding is believed to have begun just before the Song dynasty in the 10th century. And there are two legends to how it sort of started. Um, they both involve Emperor Li Yu, who was from the southern Tang dynasty, who was in power just before the Song dynasty came into power. And the first legend involves Emperor Li Yu's favorite concubine, who had a clubbed foot, who asked the emperor to make it mandatory for girls to bind their own feet so that her own foot would be the standard of beauty. The second legend involves Emperor Li Yu's favorite dancer, who he asked to bind her feet, and when she performed a dance, she was so graceful that all the other dancers and aristocratic women copied her and bound their feet. This legend seems a little doubtful, however, because women with bound feet actually tended to move not so gracefully. So the spread of foot binding. It was first popular among court dancers only, but quickly spread to all aristocratic women. And it soon spread to women from all different classes, including those in the peasant class. Peasant families would often foot bind their firstborn daughter in an attempt to marry her off to a man in a family that was higher on the social ladder. They would take their other daughters and have them work just like normal peasants. This demonstrates how foot binding was seen as a true mark of beauty in a woman. So, foot binding was seen as beautiful, and it became a prerequisite to finding a husband. Men everywhere found foot binding to be attractive, and women with bound feet had to walk in a strange way to maintain balance. They kind of had to bend their knees in a weird way, and this was seen as physically attractive to men. And women with bound feet, due to the kind of weird walking style, developed extremely strong legs, thighs, and buttocks. And the bigger and stronger those muscles were, the more attractive to men they were. But I find that really strange in how much culture can affect what people find attractive. So, the procedure of foot binding. Girls began foot binding when they were between the ages of 4 and 6, and this was because their bones were not really fully developed, which made breaking them easier. And so the process entailed breaking the foot every time it grew too large, and then binding the toes beneath the sole of the foot. The breaking would happen for 2 or 3 years, and then the girl's foot would be permanently bound. Well, we just made it past the grossest picture in the presentation. Or was it the most beautiful? So, not everyone was for foot binding. The Manchu Emperor Kangxi attempted to ban foot binding in 1644, but few obeyed the ban, which showed just the kind of power that foot binding had on the culture at the time. And Muslims were also completely opposed to foot binding, as they believed it was violating the creation of God. So, the demise of foot binding. Foot binding began declining in the late 1800s. Christian missionaries and people from the Western world looked down upon the practice of foot binding and generally viewed it as kind of primitive. And many educated Chinese people believed it made them seem less modern than the rest of the world. So Empress Dowager Cixi banned foot binding in 1902, although the practice continued into the 1930s. And that just shows how much of an impact foot binding had on their culture that it took that long for foot binding to actually stop. There are actually still elderly Chinese women alive today that have bound feet. Thank you for listening to my presentation about foot binding in China.